Hi everyone, welcome to part 3 of this video series on database normalization. In the last video we looked at how to normalize a database from unnormalized form to first normal form, and we followed a variety of rules to allow that to happen. Our solution saw us split a database table into 2 tables. So our database now has 2 entities. Okay, this word entity really just means a table in a database. So we've got 2 entities. Here's one of them. I've underlined my primary key, and this table just tells us about buses. Our second table, or our second entity, tells us for each bus on each date where they will be traveling and who the driver will be. Okay, so this table has a composite primary key. The bus number and the date combine to be the primary key of this table. And again, I've just underlined those fields to denote that they are the primary key. That tells us, of course, that bus number 57 will only make 1 trip on any given date. That's the rule that we're following. I've also highlighted with an asterisk the fact that bus num is also a foreign key. Okay, this information is actually stored in another table as a primary key. Okay, so it becomes a foreign key in this table. So interestingly, bus num is part of a primary key in this table. Doesn't have to be, it just is in this design, and it's also a foreign key. Now, we need to ask ourselves, do we need to normalize this design any further? We followed all of the rules to go from unnormalized to first normal form. Do we need to continue the normalization process to second normal form? What we're going to be looking for to decide if we need to do that are partial dependencies. Okay. Now, a partial dependency is a non-key field, so a field that isn't a primary key. We've got one here, one here, one here, one here, and one here. These 5 fields are non-key fields. We're going to ask, are they fully dependent on the primary key, or are they only partially dependent on the primary key? Now let's just have a think about that. Our root, let's look at the root start. Well, the root start and finish are not really dependent on a bus number, right? For example, bus number 57 does this route, the Queen's Ferry to Princess Street route, but this bus number 57 also does Queen's Ferry to the Rig. So we can see that different buses can take different routes. So a route isn't really dependent on this part of the primary key. Now remember, our primary key is composed of 2 fields. So we also need to go and look at the date field. Is a route dependent on a date? I'm going to argue that it is, because without a date, we don't have a route to take. So I'm going to suggest that the route information is dependent on the date, but it's not dependent on the bus number, which is also part of the primary key. I'm going to suggest that the route information is partially dependent on the primary key. Okay? As such, I know I need to transform my table into second normal form. Now to do that, I'm going to take my route information out of this table, and I'm going to create a new table for it. I'm going to create a primary key. I'm going to call it route ID. And I'm just going to use an auto-generated number for that. So that's going to be my primary key. Okay. And let's clean this up a little bit. Queensferry to Princess Street. We're repeating that. We don't need to repeat that information anymore. Princess Street to Queensferry. Queensferry to the rig. There we go. So at the moment, these are the 4 routes in our database. We've got a primary key, and I'm going to use that primary key as a foreign key in my database table. Okay, so how can I do this relatively quickly? I'm going to, what can we do here? Let's delete that column. Let's call this root ID. Which is now a foreign key. And these will just be whatever root IDs we have available. I'm just going to go back here. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 5. Here we go. So now we know that on this date, this bus will follow this route with this driver. Okay, let's rename this table. I'm going to call it table routes. This is our 3rd entity. Oh my goodness. Our database now has a 3rd entity. Okay. Now I haven't finished. I need to go and look at the other non-key attributes. I've still got 3 of them. And ask, are they fully dependent on the primary key or only partially dependent? Well, I'm going to suggest to you that Jack Lake, who lives in 14 Harlem Road, this driver here, will drive this bus on this date. Yes, I'm going to suggest that this information is fully dependent on the primary key, which is this composite key of bus num and date, right? It's fully dependent on the primary key. We have transformed our database table from first normal form to second normal form.